Good morning, Chairman. We're now live.
Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Regulation Committee on Monday the 9th of February 2026. I am Councillor Thomas Sneath, the Chairman of this committee, and to my right is Councillor Carl Edgusgowski, Vice Chairman of the committee. Can I remind you that this meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council website, and with this in mind, I would like to welcome the members of the public and the press watching us here live. As the meeting is being streamed in the usual way, I would like to remind you that your comments and statements will remain accessible online and may be reported by the media. We have had our usual fire alarm test this morning with no further fire drills planned. If the fire alarm does sound, please exit the building through the rear doors, through the reception, and assemble in the car park and wait there. Can I remind everyone to ensure that their mobiles, laptops and iPads are on silent for the duration of the meeting. Also, may I remind you that the hearing loop is now activated. Requests to speak will be collated by the Vice Chairman, and we will be having a comfort break after the first agenda item to allow members of officers and public to retire from the chamber undisturbed. We will now move on to the formal part of the agenda. Item number 1 is apologies for absent and replacement councillors. Andrew, do we have any apologies?
We have apologies today from Councillor Neil Murray, who's been replaced by Councillor Karen Lee. We also received apologies from Councillor Marianne Overton, MBE, and Councillor Gary Taylor, with no replacements. Thank you, Chairman.
Please.
Through you, Chair, just to clarify that Councillor Murray is no longer a member of the Labour Party, and this is a Labour seat, and that's actually why I'm here. Thank you.
Wonderful. We'll make sure that is noted. Thank you so much. We'll now move on to item number 2, which is declarations of councillors' interests. This is an opportunity to members to declare any pecuniary or other interests relating to the day's agenda. Now, I will say, regarding item 4.1, in the aid of transparency, I know that myself and likely all the other committee members have received correspondence and lobbying from South Kesteven district councillors and other members of the public. In relation to this item, I would therefore like to make a blanket declaration consistent with our constitution and the law on preposition and predetermination that we have received this correspondence, we sit and remain as members of the Planning and Regulation Committee, and with an open mind we will consider all the evidence, officers' advice and representations made before reaching any decision. If any councillor considers that their position is different, for example, if you feel you are predetermined and wish to declare lobbying or any other interest, please declare that now. You may also do so at any point within the meeting if that changes. Does any member wish to declare any other interests? Councillor Bean.
Hello, just to let you know that obviously, I believe it's 5.2, the traffic restrictions in Keelby. I'm the ward councillor for that area.
Is it Councillor Woodhurst? Woodruff, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. No, just item 5.4, Pioneer Way. I am the local ward member for that area. I have visited the site with the TRO team and I'm in support of that scheme. I'll participate as the local ward member, but I will abstain from the final vote and request that the abstention is recorded in the minutes.
Wonderful. Are there any others? Wonderful. And I will declare on 5.7 also I am the district councillor for an area that is covered within that agenda item. Thank you very much. We now move over to item number 3, which is the approval and signature signing of the minutes of the last meeting held on the 12th of January 2026 as a correct and accurate record. The minutes can be found on pages 5 to 20 of the agenda pack. Do any members of the committee have any comments or suggested amendments regarding the accuracy of those minutes? No? Then, therefore, do we have a proposer? Councillor Wimhurst, and a seconder? Sorry. Mr. Redford. Sorry. All those in favour of those being inaccurate minutes, please raise your hand. Any against? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Wonderful. Those minutes have been approved and I will sign them at the end of the meeting. We now move on to agenda item 4.1, which is for sand and gravel extraction and restoration to agricultural, recreation and nature conservation, the creation of a new public footpath, the erection of associated plant and infrastructure, and a new altered access from the A15 at Thetford House Farm, Baston, as submitted by Cemex UK Operations Limited. The report's recommendation is that, following consideration of the relevant development plan policy and the comments received through consultation and publicity, it is recommended that the conditional planning permission be granted, subject to the application entering into an S106 legal agreement to secure the restriction of all HGVs travelling to and from Thetford Farm Quarry from using the East End and West End Langtoft, Gretford Road and Main Street Baston, Northorpe and High Street Thirlby, and Wilthorpe Lane, Obthorpe, except for local deliveries. Also, details of measures and ensure the permanent closure of the existing Thetford Farm access onto the A15. Additionally, the provision of a habitats management and monitoring plan to ensure continuous aftercare of the restored wetland habitat for a period of 30 years following the completion of mineral extraction and the restoration of the site. The payment of fees to cover the cost of the County Council in monitoring of the habitats management and monitoring plan, a programme of ditch maintenance to desilt counter drain, and also a provision of the community liaison group. Before I invite officers to present the report, I must stress that members of the committee do not leave the chamber during an item, as this will preclude you from being able to vote on the item. I would like to invite Mike Daly to introduce the report. Sorry, over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Sir, and good morning, members. The application for members to consider today is for a new sand and gravel quarry at Thetford Farm, which is proposed as a replacement for the existing Cemex quarry at West Deeping. As illustrated on the slide, the proposed site is located on farmland to the north of Baston Village and to the south of the River Glen. This is an application subject to environmental impact assessment and is by default an application that is to be decided by the Planning Committee. The application covers around 82 hectares and seeks to extract 2.4 million tonnes of sand and gravel over an 8 to 10 year period at a rate of around 250 to 300,000 tonnes per annum. This would equate to a maximum of around 53 HGVs accessing the site per day, around 5 to 6 arrivals and departures per hour. The site would operate 7 AM to 5 PM Monday to Friday and 7 till 12 PM on Saturdays. Next slide, please. This slide gives a closer view of the area of the site with the course of the Hall Road which would access the A15. Access to this point onto the A15 is already consented by an existing district planning permission, and it is proposed this same location will be used and upgraded to accommodate both quarry traffic and all other traffic associated with Thetford Farm. To the north of the Hall Road and running parallel is the existing Thetford Farm access onto the A15, which would be permanently closed once the new access is brought into use. Next slide, please. This slide shows how the site is proposed to be worked, with mineral extracted in an anti-clockwise direction in 6 phases, with restoration carried out progressively as mineral extraction advances. At the southwest corner of the extraction area is the plant site, where the mineral will be processed and graded, and which will be accessed by a surfaced haul road from the A15. This slide shows the location of the soil buns surrounding the site, and along the southern side of the Hall Road that will be constructed to mitigate potential impacts from the development. The buns would be 3 metres high along the Hall Road and 4 metres high around the plant site area. Advanced tree planting has also been undertaken along the western boundary of the plant site, extending southwards along North Meadow Road and along the line of the Hall Road to provide additional screening once mature. Next slide, please. This slide provides some detail on the proposed layout of the plant site area. Other than for the construction of soil bunds and phase 1 mineral extraction, conveyors would be used to transport mineral from the extraction area to the plant site. Next slide, please. This slide just gives some more detail of the Hall Road, which would run along the northern side of the red line boundary and shows the location of the new farm access roads to be constructed. This also shows the location of a temporary bridge required by Historic England that will be constructed over the course of the Roman Car Dyke for its protection. Next slide, please. This slide shows a traffic light system and caution signs that will be installed at the crossing point of North Meadow Road and the Quarry Hall Road. North Meadow Road, which on the ground is essentially a trackway, runs from Baston Village and heads northwest through the application site area. The road, other than the crossing point, will be excluded from the operational areas by soil bunds. Next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed restoration scheme for the site. The plant site area will be restored back to agricultural use and the remainder to water bodies with a predominantly nature conservation leisure after use. There would also be a new footpath installed around the site to join the Macmillan Way along the riverbank to the north. Next slide, please. This slide was taken from the air quality assessment, and it provides a useful illustration of the distance of the various elements of the proposal from residential areas. The nearest residential property is around 275 metres from the extraction area along Hacks Drove to the east. The plant site is around 600 metres from the nearest residential dwelling in the village, which will be 700 metres from the extraction area. The Hall Road will be around 300 metres from dwellings to the south and 350 metres from the edge of the school playing field. Next slide, please. This slide shows the area of the proposed access onto the A15 looking north. Next slide, please. And again, looking south. Next slide, please. This slide is from North Meadow Road, standing with your back to the plant site area, looking southwest towards the village. Next slide, please. Another more distant view from near the plant site area, with the tall trees in the distance showing the proposed line of the Hall Road and the advanced planting that's been carried out in the foreground. Next slide, please. This picture is taken from the line of the Hall Road, around halfway between the plant site and the A15, looking south toward the back of the houses in the village. That's the last of the slides. Now turning to the report from page 21 of the agenda onwards. The report follows the usual layout, with the first section setting the background to the application. It is worth noting this site was previously discounted as an allocation for the updated Minerals and Waste Local Plan due to uncertainty whether a quarry in this location could be worked without significant impacts upon the nearby Baston Fen Special Area of Conservation. This is a matter that has been addressed and, as you will have read, is resolved to the satisfaction of Natural England further into the report. The next section sets out the general detail of the proposed development, which I've already summarised while presenting the slides. The application is supported by the necessary plans, a planning statement, and due to the scale and location of the development is also supported by an environmental statement, which includes a number of technical reports to support the conclusions reached within the statement. As you will have read from page 28 of the report summarises the key elements on each topic as they are set out in the chapters of the statement. From page 63, it sets out the site and its surroundings, and from page 64 are the relevant national and local planning policies. From page 72, we have the results of public consultation. For this application, there were 2 full rounds of consultation. A further round was undertaken due to substantive changes that were made to the application following discussions between LCC officers and the applicant. The main change was that no waste would be imported, processed or deposited at the site, and as a consequence, changes were made to the restoration of the site to increase the extent of the water bodies due to the waste not being available to backfill above the water table. This change also served to reduce HGV movements and emissions from processing associated with the waste element of the proposal. This section of the report sets out the responses from statutory consultees and members of the public, and also includes a survey that was undertaken of Baston Village residents. Overall, and in addition to statutory consultees, there were 388 representations received from 324 households. 384 of which were objections to the development. This section of the report summarises these responses and comments from members of the public, listing the key concerns raised. From page 88 to the conclusions sections of the report, which essentially cover two main areas. Firstly, whether there is a proven need for additional and unallocated mineral reserves that cannot be met by existing resources. And secondly, whether a new quarry in this location is both sustainable and deliverable without unacceptable impacts on the environment and local amenity. The consideration in each section of the report has taken into account planning policy considerations, the information received from the applicant, the comments of statutory consultees, and the comments received from the public and others in response to the proposal. The report concludes with a recommendation that planning permission is granted subject to the applicant entering into a Section 106 legal agreement, and that the development is permitted subject to the proposed schedule of planning conditions as set out in the report and the minor changes to conditions as set out in the subsequent committee update. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We have a full complement of speakers registered here today, with the first speaker in the registered objector, which is Councillor Adrian Clark, Chairman of Baston Parish Council. Please come to the public speaking area. You have 3 minutes to address the committee, with a warning at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the time will start when you start to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair, councillors, I'm mandated to speak on behalf of the Baston Parish Council and the people of Baston. Reading through the mountains of documentation and submissions on the planning portal, the first thing for me to make clear is that we oppose this application in its entirety. CEMEX technical submissions are supplied with the support of paid independent advisors and consultants that specialise in supporting companies through the planning application process. We don't have the expertise and finance to counter or challenge them, but of the 384 objections, I'd like to draw the members' attentions to two of them. Number 5, Hadrian Drive, a logistics expert who challenged CEMEX's original traffic report, who finally admitted significant errors on the 26th of January this year. 26 Hadrian Drive, an environmental consultant who pointed out the failings in the environmental report, which questions the validity of it. But let's be honest here, we are like David against Goliath, a parish council against a global commercial company. We are not convinced by CEMEX and have genuine fears for road safety, traffic congestion, air and noise pollution, loss of agricultural land, and they fear that their health, well-being and quality of life will be affected. We are not reassured by data sets or independent studies provided by CEMEX, who has paid for them. Our fears come from years of living by quarries. We see the dust, the dirt, the accidents, the failed restoration plans. We know the proposed access road will be dangerous. The A15 is already hazardous, with multiple accidents and deaths not recorded in the assessment before you. Baston straddles the A15 and residents can feel like they are taking their lives in their hands every time they leave the village. And not just Baston, all of the villages between Deeping and Bourne. A quarry entrance onto the A15 will make this worse, and there will be fatalities. As an ex-firefighter with 30 years of experience cutting people from vehicles, I don't want to be the person that has to say, "I told you so." Can anyone tell the residents of Baston exactly how their lives will be improved by this? With worsening queues at the crossroads, dust and noise at the primary school and residents' homes, and increased hazards on the A15. This submission is based on the lived experience of the residents of Baston who want a safe environment in which to live. CEMEX wants to make money. When will we put the interests and lives of our community ahead of the wants and needs of the commercial sector? This site has already been assessed by your officers as an unsuitable under the site selection process for the draft mineral extraction plan. What has changed, other than more theoretical, untested studies provided by CEMEX, produced by their paid experts? We strongly urge you to refuse this application, but if you are minded to approve it, we respectfully ask that a site visit be conducted so you can witness the first-hand what we already live with. Don't we owe that as a duty of care? Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much for your contribution. Do any members have any clarification questions for the Speaker? In that case, thank you so much, Dee, for your contribution.
Thank you.
I would now like to invite the local division member for Deeping West and Rural, Councillor Ashley Baxter, to speak on the item. If you'd like to please come down to the public speaking area, as before, and you will have 3 minutes to address the committee with a warning at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And the time will begin when you start to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I do, from here, I would like to explain that I understand that you've had a representation from Councillor Vanessa Smith, who is the SKDC member for that area. She has sent comments to all the committee, which I hope you've had time to read and digest, as has Councillor Phil Dilks, who I understand has sent an email this morning, which may be read out. I've just been in touch with Councillor Smith, and she said that she would struggle to make the meeting at short notice, even online. She works with the NHS and she's literally curing cancer at the moment. So she sends her apologies if she's not online. If she is online, then please, I would give way to her.
She's Councillor Baxter, she's not online, unfortunately. So I'd like to invite you to come and give your contribution as local division member, as the chairman has. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Yes, we have received correspondence from Councillor Smith, and she has highlighted her previous contributions to the area, and those contributions are valuable to the committee. And so, unfortunately, if she's not available online, I would have allowed her to speak as a personal request against the rule, but please, 3 minutes, and we are anxious to hear what you have to say. Sorry, Councillor Lee.
I'm really sorry I missed my opportunity just now, and I just wonder if it's too late. I'm a bit concerned about the safety concerns, and I wondered if we could go back to that and hear a little bit more about them, please. Thank you.
We'll make time after we've heard Councillor Baxter. Thank you so much. Councillor Baxter.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee. I'm Ashley Baxter. I've been County Councillor for Deeping's West and Rural Division, which includes Baston, since 2021. Baston is unusual in having 2 operational schools in the village, and also lots of teenagers who take the bus to Bourne and to the Deepings for school each day. So lots of children on that very busy road. Lincolnshire is facing lots of applications at the moment for housing, development and solar farms. Solar PV takes land out of agricultural use for a generation. However, if you vote to approve this application for a quarry north of Baston, you will be voting to eradicate this patch of fertile English farmland forever. The application is extremely unpopular in the area, and in Baston in particular. Almost 400 individual objections have been submitted, which is equivalent to 1 objection for every 2 households in the village. If it were an election, we would be very pleased and surprised at the participation in that amount of people taking part. This isn't. This is people being actively against a application for a industrial scale quarry in their village. For many months, even years, this has been the focus of the parish council's attention, although another planning application in Baston is now competing, which is a housing application. Committee, you've already heard from the chair of the parish council how residents are concerned about the potential impact of HGV traffic on the A15. It is already busy and dangerous. In fact, it's a notorious road. People have died at the Waterside Junction, and there have also been serious injuries and countless near misses, both at Waterside and in the main village. Adding slow-moving quarry traffic into the mix, especially allowing them to turn right, would be irresponsible. There is a better egress from the site, and I don't know why that hasn't been considered. It would only take one driver to look at one text from one girlfriend to cause a fatality. I have been lobbied by parents who would like their children to join the bus to Bourne at the nearby bus stop, but who would allow their child to stand on a grass verge at a dangerous junction now, let alone when quarry traffic is added into the mix? So, Chair and Committee, it's not just the A15 problems which are a reason for rejecting this application. It is also the noise, the dust, the lack of amenity, and perhaps most of all, the overdevelopment of the area and over-abstraction within the division. There are 7 quarries live or planned at the moment, and that's before you count all the ones that are finished. There's only so many lakes and country parks that an area can cope with. Restoration is a misnomer. It will not go back to being ordinary land. This quarry would be an unnecessary and wanton destruction of the English countryside, and it should be refused.
Thank you for your contribution. Do any members have any clarification questions for the member? No. Thank you so much indeed, Councillor Baxter. Under our public speaking scheme, we have also received a statement from Councillor Phil Dilks, the local division member for Deeping and Deeping East. Andrew will have 3 minutes to slowly read the statement into the meeting.
My primary concern, clearly shared by hundreds of local residents, is highway safety on the A15, in particular the proposed quarry access onto the A15. As members will see on page 85 of the agenda pack, my comments today are echoed by almost 400 individual objections made by residents. The A15 is a fast 60 mph increasingly heavily trafficked route, which already presents serious and well-documented safety problems, especially in villages including Langtoft, which I represent, and Baston, both of which straddle the A15, creating inherently dangerous crossroads and turning movements. Tragically, this stretch of road has also seen several deaths in recent years, including the death of a cyclist, which underlies the very real and human consequences of unsafe highway conditions. As a result, I have long campaigned and continue to campaign for improved safety measures along the A15 Deeping to Bourne, particularly following completion of hundreds of new homes at Elsie Park adjacent to the A15 on the south side of Bourne. I've also backed calls for a dedicated cycleway along the route because the current state of the road actively deters cycling. Many residents simply do not feel using the A15 as it currently exists, despite national and local ambitions to promote active travel. Against that background, I stand together with the hundreds of local residents who are deeply concerned at the proposal before you today to create a new access road directly onto the A15 to facilitate heavy goods vehicles emerging every few minutes into fast-moving traffic. It is disturbing that if the application is granted, frequent HGVs would travel south through Langtoft. But it is frankly alarming that, as confirmed in the officer's report, HGVs heading north towards Thurley and Bourne would be forced to negotiate a gap in southbound traffic before turning right. I will not relish attempting such a potentially dangerous move in a family car, but I have also long been holder of a full HGV C+C driving licence, and as such, I strongly warn against expediting heavily laden, slow-moving HGVs to cross a busy 60 mph carriageway from a standing start and safely turn right multiple times a day. This would create an accident waiting to happen and should be avoided. The proposal must be assessed against the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 111, requires that development provides safe and suitable access for all road users, while paragraph 115 makes clear that development should be refused where the residential cumulative impacts on highway safety would be severe. In my view, as county councillor and a HGV licence holder, the introduction of quarry HGVs onto the A15 will materially worsen safety conditions not only at the proposed access point, but cumulatively across a route already recognised as dangerous, particularly for cyclists and other vulnerable road users. Far from supporting active travel, this proposal would further discourage it, making it already intimidating road even less safe. By far, the most sensible and safe option would be to the quarry to take the route east from the site.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Lee, did you have a question of clarification?
Yeah, sorry, this is my first planning committee here, so I'm not that quick off the mark. I'm concerned about the safety aspects here, so I would like some sort of a response from officers and perhaps from our speakers as well. But also, it's been mentioned there's another application as well, Councillor Baxter, and obviously we judge everything on what we've got in front of us, but there is a cumulative effect, and I would like to know a little bit more about the other application as well, please.
Yeah, so we'll take the question that you want to know about the second one is a clarification question to Councillor Baxter. He has confirmed, I think, by nodding yes, there is another one. The other part we'll get to when we get to the actual speaking, rather than a clarification of something that's been said that wasn't quite clear. But no, by all means, welcome to planning, and we'll give you plenty of opportunity.
Thanks, Chair. I think I come here as a councillor who worries a little bit about the ordinary people and the impact on communities rather than just sticking rigidly to what the planning regulations are. I do feel sometimes that communities get trampled on. Thank you.
Wonderful. Then we'll move on to our final registered speaker. It's registered support and the applicant, Emma Pearman, to address the committee. Please
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. I do apologise. I thought the request that Councillor Baxter just clarifies the housing application. If I know he did it now, but I'm in your hands.
Councillor Baxter, if it's a clarification of something that you put in your opening speech, then please, if a question has been asked, if you have an answer, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, in fact, there's one live application which is for 283 houses, which would all tip out in that area. A Waits application for housing on the west side of Baston, all using the A15. Then there's also a likely application just to the left side of King Street, which is very near, for another quarry. That quarry did have permission to go ahead, but they timed out, and so I fully expect that firm will come back to renew their application for another quarry. So there's one 283 house application that is yet to be determined, but is in the emerging local plan. But the quarry has already received a permission, and it's only because of timing out that it hasn't started already.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter, for clarification of that. Were there any further clarification questions? In which case, then, we will now move to our final registered speaker of the register to support, and that's the applicant, Emma Pearman, to address the committee. Please come down to the public speaking area, where you will have 3 minutes to read out your statement with an audible warning given at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The time will start the moment you start speaking. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and members. My name is Emma Pearman and I'm a development planner for CEMEX. The application before you this morning at Thetford Farm has taken many years to get to this point. CEMEX have been working with the landowners, statutory consultees and planning officers in this time, whilst taking into account the views of residents to carefully design a scheme that is acceptable in planning terms. The scheme provides benefits in terms of significant biodiversity net gain of around 111% in habitats and over 680% in hedgerow units, proposes the planting of over 15,000 trees and shrubs, and provides a new circular public footpath for residents from Baston Village from the beginning of the development. The scheme also reduces flood risk off-site, both during operations and following restoration. Importantly, the scheme has significant economic benefits as it will help to fill a large gap in the South Lincolnshire market for sand and gravel, replacing our West Deeping site, which is shortly to close. The site at Thetford Farm is not allocated in the current minerals plan. However, as set out in the planning application and the officer's report, the need for sand and gravel in this area is currently critical. The land bank in Lincolnshire as a whole is below the 7-year minimum required by national guidance and local policy. The land bank in the South Lincolnshire production area is critically low at less than 2 years. Minerals are essential, and the consequences of such a low land bank are far-reaching. They include extended HGV journeys into this area from further afield to supply mineral, which is unsustainable environmentally. Delays to construction and increased cost of construction materials, which affects local residents and businesses alike. CEMEX have held 2 public exhibitions in Baston about this proposal. We understand that residents are concerned particularly about the access and the number of HGVs on the A15. However, the access has been through a road safety audit and the Highways Authority find it acceptable and indeed have already granted permission for an access in this location. In terms of capacity, the site access is straight onto an A road which is designed to cope with large traffic volumes. It must also be taken into account that once this site is operational, it is likely that most, if not all, other surrounding quarries will have closed or be shortly to close, with a resulting reduction in local HGV and other traffic. In terms of air quality, our assessment shows that the levels of pollutants are far below the relevant limits, and the scheme has a negligible effect on existing background concentrations. In terms of noise, again, that is well within the relevant limits for the nearest properties and the school. Monitoring of both of these is proposed. The scheme has the support of the relevant technical consultees and officers. We therefore ask you to approve this application, which accords with all the relevant policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Do any members have any clarification questions they wish to ask? Councillor Hill.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your attendance. Could you just clarify what commercial interest you have in any other quarries in the area or land which is subject to, which is already in the local plan? And the second point is, I think I did read somewhere there's mention of conveyors taking material to the existing West Epping site. So why are there still, despite that, so many proposed access onto the A15 when you apparently are saying it's going to the existing site, which has, I believe, an access onto the A16, doesn't it?
The first question, so CEMEX, we've currently got a quarry in West Epping. We've been there since about 2016, 2017, I think, so that's shortly to run out of mineral and is likely to be finished this year, later this year. We previously operated in Baston itself at a site called Manor Pit. I think that quarry first got permission in about 1969, 1970. I'm not sure at what point CEMEX took it over, but certainly that closed around 2017. So CEMEX have had a long presence in Baston. More recently, the material under the plant site at Manor Pit was taken to West Epping for processing, but that's also now finished.
This is the field at Gretford Quarry, is that, you have an interest in that?
No, nothing to do with CEMEX at all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I think your second question was about conveyance. So we did look at taking, so the site in Manor Pit had a plant site which is in Baston, potentially reachable by conveyor from the new extraction area. It would have been a long conveyor, but in the middle of that is a part of our old site called North Meadow South, which has been restored to a much lower lying agriculture. And in order to get a conveyor across that area, you'd be looking at having to import lots of fill to raise the levels of North Meadow South. Importing the fill in itself would have resulted in a lot of HGV movements just to bring that into that area to get a kind of flat surface for the conveyor. Then you'd have to get the conveyor over Baston Outgang Road, which is going to cause disruption to that road. I'm not sure what the benefits would be anyway of using the existing Manor Pit. It would have delayed restoration to Manor Pit, although HGVs wouldn't have come directly onto the A15. If they'd need to travel north, they'd have still had to go down, round, out onto the A15 at a more southern point and then still come up the A15 to go north. So overall, it wouldn't have resulted in a reduction in traffic on the A15.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thanks. Just a bit more clarification, please. Page 100 talks about comments from Natural England and Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust about loss of natural habitat. Then when you get down to the bottom of page 107, it says, based on the information available, basically it won't require the approval of a net biodiversity game plan before development begun. I'd like to know a little bit more, please, about the loss of natural habitat. There's not really any detail in this agenda on that. Thank you.
So the site will be providing a significant amount of biodiversity net gain. So this application, I think what you referred to just then about not having to do the biodiversity game plan is because that legislation came in February 2024. This application was submitted prior to that in 2022, and that's the only reason it's not, it doesn't have to, but the requirement for net gain is 10%. We're proposing 111% in habitats. We're proposing 680% in hedgerows. So we're going significantly above what's required anyway by that legislation. In addition, we're proposing a 30-year management plan, which is the same that we'd be required to do anyway under that legislation. So we have a 30-year habitat management and monitoring plan. So essentially, while we don't have to provide that biodiversity net gain plan, the effect is the same because we will be required to provide the net gain we've said we will through that 30-year management.
Yeah, my point was, with respect, that's a technical point. You don't have to do it. But my point was that Natural England and Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust have objected, and I'd like to know a bit more about their objections, please. Thank you.
Councillor, that will be a question that would go to the officer. The clarification questions are on the statement that has been read to you, if there was something within that statement that wasn't clear, rather than what's in the report. So what those questions wonderfully answered. It's more of a clarification of what you've just heard from the speaker, but those questions will be answered by officers. Yes, after you've heard all the speakers, we'll start the debate, and by all means hit the officers with all your questions. Can we move to Councillor Woodruff? No. Councillor Bean.
It wasn't me, Chair.
That's fine. Councillor Bean.
Thank you. I'm not sure if my questions are actually for the speaker or for the officers, but I'll ask them anyway. So I've just got some concerns because the site is so close to the Baston Fen, which is a site of special scientific interest, and also you're going to be extracting below the water table, so that is naturally going to drop the water table. So can you guarantee that there's going to be no effect to Baston Fen?
So I'm just getting my hydro notes here. So that's the reason why the Wildlife Trust and Natural England originally objected to this scheme, because they were worried about the dewatering we're proposing, lowering the water table in Baston Thurlby Fen. So that's something we went away with and spent a year during this application putting in more boreholes and monitoring water levels to try and work out kind of what's happening with Baston Thurlby Fen and how they're fed by groundwater. So at the Reg 25 stage, we came back and produced a monitoring mitigation plan. So we spoke to the Wildlife Trust and Natural England about this and have produced a monitoring mitigation plan, which basically puts in a huge amount of continuous monitoring to check water levels. So some of the measures we're proposing are a clay face on the northern boundary of the quarry, which prevents groundwater losses from Baston Thurlby Fen. We've also got a recharge trench north of the quarry. So when we dewater, the water that is collected by that will sit at the bottom of the quarry. That will then be pumped to the recharge trench to maintain levels north of the site, bearing in mind Baston Thurlby Fen runs to the north. Then in that recharge trench, we've got continuous monitoring of water levels. We've also got 3 more boreholes proposed before we start working between our recharge trench and the fen. So we've got a huge amount of checks to make sure the water level doesn't drop. And if it does drop, we would be notified by the levels in the recharge trench and those levels in the boreholes before it gets to the fen. And then obviously we take action at that stage. And we've produced this monitoring mitigation plan. Natural England and the Wildlife Trust are both now happy with that and are not objecting anymore.
Thank you. I'm sure that Natural England are the experts. I'm just concerned that if you did detect that the water level in Baston Fen was dropping, which of course would affect this site, what steps would you be taking to reverse that?
So I think that's set out in our monitoring mitigation plan. I think what we said is, so we've obviously got this continuous water level monitoring. Then I think the first step is if we see it dropping, we would look at whether the pump is operating properly to pump the water from the dewatering back into the recharge trench. Because in theory, what we're taking out, we're putting back into the trench anyway, so there shouldn't be any loss of water overall. So we check the pump is working. Obviously, if that's still not working, we would just have to cease dewatering. I mean, it is possible to extract sand and gravel without dewatering. It's more difficult, but we would stop before we affected that fen.
Thank you. I think we're deviating beyond clarification now. We're asking a few technical questions which officers will have the details for. Was there any other clarifications on the statement that was read, or...
No, I think my other question is probably for the officers.
But brilliant, wonderful. In that case, if there's anybody else wishing to ask questions, thank you, Emma, so much indeed for your time and your statement.
Chair, could I just bring to your attention that I understand that Councillor Smith is now available if the committee were willing to listen to her.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Unfortunately, at this moment, because we've moved from the speakers into the time, we were going to allow the supporter additional time to compensate for the fact that there was an additional speaker. Unfortunately, because that's now only just come to our attention, we've now moved on to the formal part of the debate. We have received the email that Councillor Smith has sent, and I know that I believe the whole committee has read that email and it's been sent to them. So hopefully they've had time to digest what Councillor Smith wished to say, and they will take that in due regard. But with that, we will now move on to the main debate. And Vice Chairman, do we have any members wishing to speak?
Councillor Vernon, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I am aware that one of my colleagues asked whether it would be possible for a highways officer to present, and I note that there is no highways officer present. I would like to propose... Oh, sorry. Oh, I do apologise. You were hiding from me there, so I do apologise. There is a highways officer present. But yeah, on that though, I do think that this application, I know this area well. I live in an adjacent division to this particular field. I do think we need to go out and see this. And rather than have a lengthy debate today, I think we should defer immediately with support from my colleagues for a site visit to be arranged and consider this in its entirety again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bean.
That's okay. I'll waive my questions until we've resolved the site visit. I would second that motion.
Thank you.
Councillor Vernon.
May I just take advice from legal that we can defer this application in its entirety so that we can discuss everything again in the future? I know that in previous times when we defer, we have to defer on a specific item, but for clarity, I would like to defer on every item so that we can discuss it in full at another meeting after all members have had the opportunity to see the area.
Yes, that was actually going to be my advice if it was brought up. Defer it for the entirety of the report, and then you can debate it in its fullness at a later date. So yes.
Okay, does any other member wish to have any questions regarding before we debate? Okay, in which case then we've had a proposition put forward by Councillor Vernon, which has been seconded by Councillor Bean. We will now move to discuss that matter of deferment, if anybody's got any questions regarding the deferment. Councillor Lee.
I'd still like the comments around safety. I'd like those clarified, but I would support the site visit too. I just think there's no reason that we can't hear the evidence behind the concerns over the site visit, because we've got the speakers here. We could hear that, couldn't we?
You can pose a question to the officer regarding the highways. The speakers, the registered speakers that have come here.
With respect, can I not ask the opposers?
No. No, you can only ask. We can ask
well, highways are going. They've approved it. They're not going to say. Well,
you can ask your question. If highways have any further comments.
I would just like to put it down on record that I'm not really happy with that. I would like to have heard from the opposers why they felt this was so unsafe, and I don't think that's an unreasonable question.
Okay. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I'd like to support the deferral. Could I just say that the timing of the day would be particularly important, because certainly at commuting times, that part of the A15 is basically one continuous line of traffic, and in particular on the King Street junction, which is very nearby. Every time there have been a lot of accidents there, and every time somebody wants to turn right, there's a massive queue, and you can. So I think, particular the time of the day, if you went in the middle of the day, although it would be busy, it wouldn't be quite as hectic as before, and particularly also the minor roads which go to the east of the village are not suitable in my opinion. So hopefully if this site visit had agreed, a drive round there would show that having 100 or so lorries going backwards and forwards would not be a suitable alternative.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, Councillor Lee, moving back to your point, the questions are, the speakers have 3 minutes to speak, and after that, because they're not part of the committee, they cannot answer questions. However, if we are deferring this in its entirety, those questions could be put forward, and then a response could be made, so you would be able to have that. But unfortunately, we are not allowed non-committee members, once they've spoken, to be able to ask questions. As wonderful as it would be, it's within the committee. Do we have any further questions regarding? Okay. Councillor Bean.
Sorry, Chair, just one quick question to Highways. When you did your survey and decided that this wasn't going to cause too severe impact, did that take into account the extra traffic from this housing development that is proposed?
So obviously each application is assessed on its own individual merits. So when assessing this quarry application, it was assessed as a quarry application, and I don't believe the housing application had come forward when we were considering this application. When we're considering the housing development, we will obviously look at the appropriate mitigation for that development.
Right. And
add that from a planning perspective. Obviously, at this stage, we don't know whether that housing development is going to be accepted or not. So it might be refused or it might be approved. In terms of the planning process, once a development has got planning permission, that's when you would take that into consideration. So if this application is approved, then that housing development application will need to take into account the traffic associated with this development. So that's how it works in planning processes, because you couldn't take into account a development where you don't know whether that's going to be granted yet or not. So that would be unacceptable to refuse it on that basis. But the way it works is that once a consent is granted, then it becomes a consideration that you can take that into account, because there is a very high chance that development will take place, and that's how the cumulative side of things works.
Thank you for the clarification. So the housing development would be looked at by South Kesteven District Council? Thank you.
Councillor Rundle.
Thank you for letting me speak, Chairman. I think there's the amount of objections, we have to get this really right. And I do agree that going to visit will certainly give us some more insight. But a lot of representation that I received was concerned about dust and dust going over the village. And I've read the report that apparently the dust, the particles of sand or whatever is not small enough to create dust. However, if we're looking at highways and we're looking at traffic, what's the actual road going to consist of that's coming in and out of the quarry, and will that create dust? And if that's part of highways, could we just make sure that we're not, I appreciate that the quarry might not create the dust, but certainly the lorries might, and it is a big consideration to a lot of the local residents, so I think we need to get to the bottom of that as well, please. If we could maybe consider that as part of the, I don't know if the traffic survey, I appreciate highways have agreed that, but did they factor in the dust? Thank you.
Thank you. The whole road will be hard surfaced, probably concrete, so that it can be managed and kept clean and swept, etc. There's a dust management plan proposed and secured by planning condition to keep on top of the dust, and the mitigation measures put in place include bunds and planting alongside the whole road and around the quarry. The impact of dust has undergone a full assessment by the applicant through their technical specialists, and that technical assessment has been submitted to the district environmental health officer, and they're satisfied that provided the mitigation measures are put in place and maintained, that the development is acceptable and there wouldn't likely be any significant impacts on health.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Councillor Bedford.
My question is more on the safety side of things. The junction coming onto the A15, it is a busy road, and every person who has spoken has mentioned something to do with this. Is there a possibility of getting more information for when we have the next meeting of how you are you making the road wider? Are you making the road? You say it's a concrete road coming up. At what point will it join, and how will you mitigate any circumstances for the safety? Can we have more detail on this in drawings, for instance, please?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are drawings available, aren't there, on the planning portal, but I'll just provide you with some context in terms of our highway assessment. So the application details HGV movements up to 106 movements per day. So that's over a 10-hour operating day. So that is 10.6 HGV movements per hour. So that roughly equates to one HGV movement every 5 to 6 minutes. So in practical terms, this is intermittent HGV activity, not a continuous flow. If you compare that with the A15 and the annual average daily traffic survey records, there's 16,000 vehicles per day, two-way, on that network. That's a typical weekday. So when compared to this baseline for the quarry, 106 additional HGV movements represents approximately 0.66% of total daily traffic. So this is well under 1% of the existing vehicular movements. So the proposed quarry traffic has been determined that it would not materially alter traffic flow characteristics, it wouldn't represent a step change in road usage, and it would sit comfortably within the existing capacity of the A15. So whilst 106 HGV movements may sound significant in isolation, when assessed against the existing traffic on the A15, the increase is fractional, spread across the day, and it does not fundamentally change how that road operates. The A15 is a strategic rural A road, and it's designed to accommodate HGV traffic. The applicant has considered the appropriate mitigation to serve that development, and that is in the form of a Ghost Island right turn lane, which satisfies any highway-related concerns, and in line with the MPPF, we don't believe the proposals constitute a reason for refusal based on highway safety or severity.
I wasn't thinking of doing it for a refusal. I wanted to make sure it was safe. That was my main concern. I would like to see something that shows that it would be safe. That is what I'm asking.
Okay. Well, we have the appropriate plans on the planning portal which demonstrate it's supported obviously with a transport assessment. It has a road safety audit, and it's all been concluded that it will work, it's safe, fit for purpose, and provides safe and suitable access for all in line with the MPPF. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. I'll take a question and then I'm going to...
Yeah, I mean, just advice really, so I don't want to have a double debate. Obviously, the details are in the report about the ghost lane. So I'm asking officer advice. Obviously, the King Street Junction has a bad accident record, and there is part of this proposal to stop up the road which currently hits there. So is it possible to look at opportunities for, as part of developed contributions to highway safety, actually improving that junction at the same time and keep the existing road which is there for the Thetford development? Would that be a legitimate discussion, or can we not talk about that?
Okay, so as I've already alluded to, we are adding a minimal amount of extra traffic to the A15. The TA does demonstrate that no junctions in the vicinity of the site are at capacity, near capacity, or in need of any improvements as a result of this application and the proposals put forward. So we consider that the right turn lane is the appropriate form of mitigation, and no further mitigation would meet the test for being necessary, relevant, etc.
So is that, we could, but we don't want to, because there is an accident record at the King Street Junction. So I'm a bit confused by that answer. I mean, I understand that as it stands, that's all right, but there could be alternative solutions. Are we saying technically that is not allowed to be discussed, or is it the highways don't want to discuss it? I'm a bit
Obviously,
confused.
having reviewed the collision data, it doesn't demonstrate a pattern or a common causation or evidence of a systematic safety issue. So the analysis indicates incidents are predominantly attributable to driver behaviour rather than any inherent highway design or capacity constraint. So in line of what the quarry are proposing to add to the network, it's not considered that it will cause a safety issue any more than what is currently happening on the network.
So I still, obviously, potentially, the road could stay, the Thetford Road, whatever it, that feeds to Thetford Farm, could stay and go straight to that junction. So was that considered as part of the highways discussions?
No, the Thetford access has to be closed if this quarry planning permission goes ahead. That's part of the section 106.
But if what I'm asking is, what did highways look at improving the junction at the King Street junction and having the Thetford Road access straight onto an improved junction? Developer would still contribute, but not at the moment. We're talking about I know it's already got an access, but there is a massive difference between the Thetford Farm, which actually they don't use they have never used the access they got permission for. They keep using the one they've got. So the question is, was a discussion had about putting a junction onto the King Street junction, a major improvement which would include contributions from the developer and, I presume, contributions from the council. Was that considered or not?
The only access I'm aware of was the access that was put forward, and I wasn't asked to review any other alternatives in terms of access to the site.
Right. I think we've deviated across from the discussion on whether we're going to defer it. So I think it's about time we actually ran that vote. Councillor Lee, is it a question regarding the deferment?
Can I just ask, when people speak, that they speak into the microphones? Because if the microphone's there and you speak away from it, can't hear what you're saying, and it makes it really difficult. I was going to make a comment on the safety as well. I mean, I think we've all raised questions about the safety, and I would say page 82 at the bottom says the development will not result in an unacceptable impact on highway safety. Well, the whole point of having councillors on this committee is to get the input from the residents' perspective and not pure planning. So, you know, I think that's a bit of a subjective comment as well.
Okay, I think we have a proposal by Councillor Vernon that we defer the matter in its entirety following a site visit. That has been seconded by Councillor Bean. It's only right that we put that to the vote. All those in favour of a deferment, please raise your hand. Those against? And any abstentions? One abstention. In that case, then, we will defer the matter in its entirety following
Chair,
a site
through
vote.
you as well, can we have an awful lot more information about the safety aspects of this? Because I don't feel there's enough in here. Thank you. For the next meeting.
Thank you. We'll pass that over to the officers. Okay. In which case, then, I will actually call a quick 10-minute break at that point to allow members of the public to leave and those speakers. And I would ask you to be back into the chamber by 11:45. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. We now move on to the next section of the agenda, where the committee will consider the reports and objections to the executive proposals for proposed traffic regulation orders and speed limits. So 5.1 is the first item at Gainsborough, Tooley Street, proposed waiting restrictions. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you and good morning. The first report today relates to proposed waiting restrictions at Tooley Street in Gainsborough. We have some part-time restrictions at the junction with Bridge Street, but parking along here, particularly at the junction, obstructs the flow of traffic, particularly for large vehicles, and this results in them having to back up along the street to reverse into Trinity Street. We've proposed 24-hour restrictions at the junction of Bridge Street and with Primrose Street, and some part-time restrictions to apply Monday to Saturday during the day on the south side of Tooley Street. We've had 2 objections concerned about the loss of parking for residents and displacement of parking into Primrose Street. Our view is that these restrictions will be needed to maintain traffic flow along Tooley Street and have recommended that the objections are overruled. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members wish to speak or have any comments?
Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's obviously not my division, but as a Gainsborough resident, I do know this area well. And as the officer says, trying to get out of that junction when the cars and the vans are parked there it's just a danger trying to get onto Trinity Street. So I do fully support the proposals and will propose them. I do share the concerns of the residents about the displacement, because I fully suspect we'll probably be back here in a year, 18 months' time with another restriction to go on Primrose Street, because all that will happen is those cars that are parked on that street will move around the corner. So it's just, I guess when we're looking at these, are we thinking about sort of future-proofing and what the impact is going to be? And instead of, like I say, as I suspect, you know, the local ward member will probably have a few emails now saying that Primrose Street is gridlocked. What can he do about that? So I do support it and will propose it, Chair, but just concerns about the knock-on effect.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt, was that you proposing it? Brilliant. I too, I mean, I quite agree. All we're doing is not solving a problem, we're just moving it around. Although it is a very tight street, and I think with parking on both sides of that road, it does cause quite a lot of restrictions. And if there was a need of an ambulance or a fire engine to go down that road, as we've said, HGVs are having to reverse along the road. I think it is a sensible solution to the problem. And again, parking opposite a junction, making it difficult. I think the officers have done the best they can in this situation, and we do acknowledge that it is just going to displace the parking. But it has been proposed by Councillor Bowles and Councillor Hill.
Yeah, obviously defer the local knowledge, but I mean, in terms of there will be a problem of displacement, and I presume some issues about parking outside properties. Has a one-way system in this area been considered? Because that might, is that a better solution? I'm just put the question out there to Jan.
Thank you. Yeah, there is a one-way in place already from east to west on there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the concerns of the parking either side of the road that's causing the narrowness of it, rather than everybody travelling in the same, in different directions. But as I say, I'm happy to second that proposal. So we therefore propose that the committee notes the contents of the report and the proposed traffic regulation order detailed at Appendix A, have given due regard to the objections received as details in the report, and recommend to the Executive Officer, Councillor of Highways and Transport to support the proposed order. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? Any abstentions? Councillor Lee, I'll take as an abstention from yourself as you missed the very start of the bit. Wonderful. That has been carried. Thank you very much. We now move over to the next item agenda, which is 5.2, it's Kelby on various roads, proposed waiting restrictions. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you. at busy times, school busy times, and also events at the church and the hall does generate quite a lot of on-street parking. And we've looked at a number of schemes in this area and have finally settled on the 24-hour restrictions as shown at Appendix A. These will protect narrow areas of streets and visibility at junctions, but we have had 4 objections. The objections vary from wanting more restrictions in some areas to wanting a reduction in others. Our view is that the restrictions are the minimum required to maintain traffic flow and improve highway safety, but also without displacing too much of the parking that's evidently needed in relation to the school, the hall and the church. So we therefore recommend that the objections are overruled. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions, please?
Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, as the ward member, I'm aware of the problems in these areas, the amount of traffic, particularly around the school area, and also the narrowness of some of the streets. So I would propose that we support this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think, looking at it, it's very rare that we get people saying, can you make more restrictions around the area? I know that we have to allow some parking, and I think the officers have done the best they can for this scheme. It has been proposed by Councillor Bean that the committee notes the contents of the report and the proposed traffic regulation order detailed in Appendix A has been given due regard to the objections received as detailed in the report and recommend to the Executive Council of Highways and Transport to support the proposed order. I'm happy to second that. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? Any abstentions? That recommendation has been carried. Thank you. Move over to agenda item number 5.3, Lincoln, Consul Road, proposed waiting restrictions. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you. So it has been brought to our attention that this short section of road, on the next slide please, is part of Coulson Road to the west of Tritton Road, and it does get parked on by usually students. If we just show the next slide please, Andrew. Thank you. This illustrates the extent of the parking here and also the fact that this road, as well as being used as an essential access route for Network Rail, the Drainage Board and a farmer, also is used by pedestrians and cyclists. And we've proposed 24-hour restrictions for the full extent of the highway on Coulson Road at this point, and we've had 2 objections from students concerned that they will lose free parking, but we would recommend that this area should be kept clear at all times so that all highway users can use it safely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments or questions, please?
Propose the recommendations.
Councillor Vernon.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very happy to second those recommendations. Looking at the picture that was provided there, you could not get emergency vehicles through that gap at all. So I think, yeah, absolutely happy to second. Thank you.
Councillor Lee.
I'd third that. It's horrendous there. I'm from Lincoln and I drive down there a lot. It's horrific. You wouldn't get past and you would not get an emergency vehicle past there. And to say, you know, we're students, so we need to park there. I'm sorry, but the university is in a fairly city centre location. You could get a bus or walk. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I must say, well done to all the students for finding some free parking. Unfortunately, I think this loophole is going to have to be looked at because, as you've quite rightly said, they have blocked the access. They have found some free parking, so congratulations to them all. But it has been proposed by Councillor Hill that the committee notes the contents of the report and propose a traffic regulation order as detailed in Appendix A has been given due regard. The objections received as detailed in the report and recommends to the Executive Councillor for Highways and Transport that the proposed order be approved has been seconded by Councillor Vernon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That recommendation has been carried. Now move over to item 5.4, Lincoln Pioneer Way, proposed waiting restrictions. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you. When a new business moved into this industrial estate relatively recently, it did generate a lot more on-street parking due to the nature of the business. And we received concerns from other businesses about access to their premises and along Pioneer Way itself being obstructed by on-street parking. Having visited the site, there was an issue, and we have proposed double yellow lines as shown in blue at Appendix A, but mindful that some businesses will need their customers to be able to park on street. We have left it unrestricted where we feel this is acceptable. We've had 5 objections from businesses on the estate stating that they don't believe the restrictions go far enough in order to solve the issues. But in an effort to try and balance the needs of on-street parking and the problems caused by it, we would recommend that the objections are overruled. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have Councillor Woodruff here as a local member, and therefore if you would like to make any comments first, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, John, for the report. Obviously, I've visited there as well with the officers. It's a funny shaped bit of road, and the problem does arise when vehicles park on both sides. I think the restrictions that are proposed are adequate, and I think they do allow for some on-street parking as well. Some of the businesses did try to help and mitigate the parking by allowing use after business is closed, and that was abused and during working hours, so they had to stop that. I visited, and I'm fully in support of it, and hopefully it's an approved one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do any of the members have any comments or questions, please?
Councillor Vernon.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the ward member for his comments. It's always really useful to hear from them. I note that these are not objections to these schemes at all, and they're actually wanting it to go further than it is. So I see absolutely no reason at all why we shouldn't approve this application in front of us today. It may be that in future we see a further application for further restrictions, but let's see how that goes. So yeah, I'm very happy to propose if the ward member hasn't, or second if he has. Thank you.
No, in that case then, we'll take Councillor Vernon's proposal that the committee notes the contents of the report and the proposed traffic regulation order detailed in Appendix A has been given due regard to the objections received as detailed in the report, and recommends to the Executive Council of the Highways of Transport that the proposal be approved. I'm happy to second that. So we'll take it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Thank you. That recommendation has now been carried. We move on to the agenda item number 5.5, Mablethorpe, Peeves to Chambers Way, proposed bus stop clearway. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you. So as part of the National Bus Strategy, funding has been provided for the council to survey numerous bus stops around the county and provide improvements where necessary. This site has been identified. It serves a number of bus routes and is well used by passengers. A road safety audit for the bus stops here indicated that on-street parking may cause issues for buses to access the curb. So we've proposed 2 bus stop clearways. We've had 1 objection from a nearby resident concerned about pedestrian safety and about emissions from engines. We can confirm that there are 2 crossing points either end, so pedestrian access to the stops is facilitated, and the bus stops are unlikely to be used by buses to lay up and idle. They will only be there for as long as to pick up and set down passengers. We recommend therefore that the objection is overruled. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions, Councillor Vernon?
Thank you, Chairman. I've read this report and obviously note the objection that's been received. I think we actually have a duty as the County Council to promote public transport, and I think by approving this application we're doing exactly that. We don't want to have vulnerable users having to negotiate parked vehicles or any other hazards on their, I say journey to get to the bus, but sort of when embarking on the bus. So I'm very happy to propose this application. Thank you.
Yeah, having read the report, I think it's the suggestion was that the bus stop be placed on a different road, but it's not a road where the buses naturally go down, so it would mean changing the routes. So therefore, it has been proposed by Councillor Vernon that the committee notes the contents of the report and the traffic regulation order detailed in Appendix A has been given due regard to the objection received as detailed in the report and recommends to the Executive Councillor for Highways and Transport that the proposal be approved. I am happy, therefore, to second that. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That recommendation is now carried. We now move over to agenda item 5.6, Spalding, Balmoral Avenue, proposed waiting restrictions. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you. So following an injury to a child using the link footway to the school that comes out onto Balmoral Avenue, we have been asked to look at introducing restrictions at this location. We've looked at the area quite widely because the displacement of vehicles would needs to be taken into consideration at school start and finish times, and we proposed 24-hour restrictions at junctions and on the bend outside number 54, and part-time restrictions to manage parking at school start and finish times. We've had one objection from a resident regarding loss of on-street parking, but feel that as the majority of residents here have off-street parking facilities, the inconvenience will be limited, and also the part-time nature of most of the restrictions will allow parking outside school start and finish times. We've recommended that the objection is overruled. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions? Councillor Lee.
I'd absolutely support this. I think it's a problem that's common across probably every single division in the county. And I take Jan's point about most of the residents have got off-street parking, and even the one that hasn't, there are only part-time restrictions. And I know in my experience, people going to schools, honestly, they just park anywhere. And this has got to be about the children's safety. Thank you.
Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the proactive approach already have taken and fully support this proposal, as I'm very much familiar with the place. I live in Spalding, and the measures are necessary to address clear safety concern, improve visibility, and protect children at school start and finishing times. This is, I think, is proportionate, practical, and best of interest of the whole community.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Taylor can't be with us today, and I know that this is in his division, and I know that it's his request which has asked for this to be considered. So obviously I would expect that sort of he would support this, but whilst I've not spoken to him directly about the application, I've read it myself. I note that this is about, yet again, sort of enforcement of something that's already in place that is unenforceable, so we've got to go down this route to do. And I think fundamentally, as Councillor Lee has said, this is about children's safety on their way to school, so absolutely happy to support.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Thank you. I know Councillor Taylor, if he was here, he would be very strong on this one. As a friend and a fellow councillor in the area, where it is, it's actually a very tight bit of road. I don't think people realise when you go round, and any obstruction means you're on the wrong side of the carriageway, having to squeeze round. This is something that probably should have become a lot sooner, and I wish it actually had under the circumstances. And therefore, I am happy to propose that the committee notes the contents of the report and the proposed traffic regulation order detailed in Appendix A, including the correction of the proposed restriction having been given due regard to the objections received as detailed in the report, and recommends to the Executive Councillor for Highways and Transport that the proposal be approved. Could I please ask for a seconder? Councillor Vernon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against, any abstentions? Thank you. That recommendation is now carried. We now move on to the final item, which is 5.7, Spalding, Fulney Drove and Mill Drove North, proposed 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you. This final report relates to a proposed 50-mile-an-hour speed limit on Fulney Drove and Mill Drove North, just to the east of Spalding, sorry. There's been a number of accidents occurring at the crossroads, as shown at Appendix A. The Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership have considered this site several times and tried to identify measures to reduce the accident rate. They are in the main overshooting from the side roads into the main road. They've improved signage and road markings to try and reduce this, but no other engineering measure is presenting itself as an option, so they have made a request to us to introduce a speed limit to try and reduce accidents along this stretch. It has not met our policy in terms of criteria for a speed limit, but in the policy we are permitted to seek approval for a speed limit on the basis that it will contribute to accident reduction. So the purpose of this report is to seek that approval for us to consult on a 50-mile-an-hour limit as shown. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions?
Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I suspect this is a bit of a rat round this road for people avoiding these roundabouts, the A16. I was just interested in why the whole length of Fulney Drove and Mill Drove North are proposed, whereas the Clay Lake Road and the Old Fendike Road only are not. I mean, I fully accept, and I think it's right, at the crossroads there is an issue which a speed limit would resolve, but I'm just questioning why the whole of Mill Drove North and Fulney Drove are considered for a 50.
Thank you. I think the idea is to try and get a consistent reduction in speed along the whole length, and there have been a number of accidents on Fulney Drove itself and Mill Drove North. So I think the idea is to try and get that consistent reduction throughout the whole length. The side roads, I think we've placed the extent of the limit a short distance on the side roads because the additional signage, again, triggers drivers to acknowledge that they're coming up to a junction perhaps. It just helps perhaps with that visual intrusion that hopes to slow them down. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon.
Thank you, Chairman. I note this request comes from the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership, which I think we should give sufficient weight to. I also note, and I just want to clarify, I'm reading this correctly, that sort of in the area that we're looking at, there have been 20 accidents within the last 5 years. That's correct. That is a huge number of accidents, and I think that any measure that we could take to try and reduce that, and sort of obviously the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership have, as you've said, considered alternatives, and I think this is the only opportunity that we have to be able to try and help this, to be honest. So I'm very happy to propose this in the format that it's in the report. Thank you.
Okay, I think I might take this opportunity to give a bit of personal experience as being the councillor. I should have ward member as a district to that area. This road is a very narrow road, exceedingly narrow. It is just about passable for 2 lorries at a very slow speed. It wasn't as bad until Wrangle Gate, which leads to the A16, was reduced to a 40 mile an hour. Everybody then decided to take the shortcut because it's a quicker road to get to the A16. There has been a number of accidents on this road. I have turned up to milliseconds after quite a serious car that pulled out, clipped another car as it came round. It's a blind corner, and so when cars are getting to the give way, they're quickly looking. They're looking to the right, but really they need to be looking more sort of 1-2 o'clock to the direction, and they're coming out, clips the cars, and you can end up having cars barrel roll down the road as they are doing 60 miles an hour. I would like to see the measures go further, just due to the nature of living in the area and travelling it. I would like to modify it and say, could we even reduce the speed down lower, which I think having it even looked at 50 miles an hour is actually an improvement, and I really welcome the fact that we can bring forward, if it doesn't meet the criteria, because we can look at the accident rate. I think this is welcomed for every member here and every other member of the council that can bring areas forward. I would like to see a stop sign put at the end of the junction, which is forcing people to not just glance, not just look to see whether there is anything coming, but to physically stop and take a moment to look along the road to see whether it is clear for them to pull out. I know that at 50 miles an hour, people will be travelling at 50, 55. People's speed creeps. They look, they can see what's happening, but people that are coming to a blind junction, they need to be forward to stop. I would therefore like to propose that we put a modification in that suggests that we actually change the give way to a stop sign on both ways of the adjoining road, if possible, but I will seek guidance from Jan if that is something that we could modify on it, or whether there is a reason why we can't.
Yeah, the stop sign has to be used under very strict criteria, and it would not meet the criteria there because the visibility is adequate. You only use a stop sign when your visibility is very severely impaired, so we wouldn't be able to meet that criteria, I'm afraid, at those junctions.
No, thank you very much for your insight, and that will explain then why it is a give way there and nothing else. In that case then, I am still very pleased that this has come before the committee, and it has been proposed by Councillor Vernon that the committee notes the contents of the report, and in doing so has given due regard to the relevant speed limit policy criteria as detailed in the report, has considered the proposal to the commence of the statutory process for the speed limit order to introduce a 50 mile an hour speed limit for the section of road shown highlighted in red on the plan at the Appendix A, recommends to the Executive Councillor for Highways and Transport that the proposal be approved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bean, I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That recommendation has now been carried. And that now concludes the business of the meeting. I would just like to ask members if they would just remain 5-10 minutes after the meeting is closed, so that we can have a discussion regarding the first item and arranging logistics behind that. And also remind members that on Thursday the 12th of February at 10:30 a.m. here in the council chamber there will be a planning committee training for any members who wish to sit on the committee, or if any member wishes to have a bit of a refresher course on the material, and where questions and queries will be answered. So please let Andrew know, Democratic Services, if you wish to attend. I therefore draw the meeting to a close. The time is 12:13 p.m. Thank you very much to you members.